Police encounter exposed. Hidden identity of black man as chief revealed, leaves officers shocked. Marcus drove home, the weight of a long shift thick on his shoulders. The blur of streetlights reflected in his tired eyes, while the hum of the city whispered the stories of countless families like his own, struggling yet resilient. He was a dedicated father, a warehouse worker earning his keep, and a part-time youth soccer coach, striving to instill hope and teamwork in the kids of his diverse community. As he turned a corner, his heart swelled with pride, imagining his daughter's smile when he got home. But then, the flashing blue lights shattered the tranquility. His heart raced. "Pull over." The command echoed in his mind, mingling anxiety with indignation. The knot in his stomach twisted tight as two officers approached, their expressions firmly set in suspicion. Marcus knew that look. It was the one that had haunted him through years and generations. "Sir, step out of the vehicle," one officer demanded, a bark that sounded more like a judgment than an order. Waves of indignation crashed against his resolve. Why was he treated like a criminal when all he wanted was to provide for his family? Memories of his hard-working mother flashed through his mind, her voice urging him to stay strong. At a distance stood Jonah, Marcus's estranged brother. A former soldier haunted by his own demons, he watched the scene unfold, torn between fear and the desire to rush in and protect Marcus. Their bond had been frayed over time, and now it felt like the past was echoing in the air, a reminder of love tainted by hurt. "Marcus, you okay?" Jonah shouted, voice laced with worry and a hint of anger. But as they exchanged strained glances, memories of childhood fights bubbled to the surface. The burden of their fractured relationship sat heavy on Jonah's heart, and he hesitated, unsure whether to intervene. The officers interrogated Marcus, unrelenting in their approach, asking questions that dug at his roots, trying to undermine the man he had fought hard to become. Marcus could feel the weight of the community on his back, the young boys and girls he coached, the dreams he forged for them in every practice. Then, in a moment laden with tension, a shocking truth emerged. "I'm the chief of police," Marcus declared, his voice steady. The words hung in the air, a stark contrast to the suspicion that had smothered him moments before. What should have been a revelation turned into chaos as the officers looked incredulously at one another, fueling confusion and igniting the air with further speculation. "Yes, me. I'm here to make a difference, to bridge gaps," Marcus yelled, but those words hung uselessly in the air. His family's eyes widened, shock rippling through them. In that chaotic swirl of misunderstanding, Marcus realized he was fighting against prejudice, but also confronting old wounds within his family. Caught within this turbulent storm, Jonah's heart raced. Should he celebrate his brother's success or mourn the chasm that had grown between them? He felt torn, admiration clashing with a sense of betrayal. Now, it seemed like the struggle was not just with the officers, but within their own family, a crack threatening to shatter everything. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With emotions spiraling, the officers stood divided, the weight of their prejudices colliding with newfound revelations. Voices rose and faces twisted, echoes of frustration rippling through the gathered crowd. The community watched, hearts pounding, each witness holding their breath, waiting to see how this tense confrontation would unfold. As the atmosphere thickened, the question loomed, could family wounds heal in the heat of chaos? Would Marcus and Jonah withstand this night that promised to define their futures? The revelation was out, but the true challenge was just beginning. The officers exchanged confused glances, uncertainty flickering in their eyes as they processed Marcus's bold declaration. One of them stepped closer, skepticism still painted on his face. "You expect us to believe that?" he spat, crossing his arms defiantly. Marcus's heart beat louder than ever. He knew what they saw: a black man, alone in a car, pulled over under dubious circumstances. He was frustrated, but beneath the anger lay a painful vulnerability. "Check my badge," he urged, voice trembling but steady. This isn't just a random claim. I'm here to change things. The crowd had grown as whispers spread, more faces peering from windows nearby. Some were curious, while others were filled with concern. Among them, Jonah shifted uncomfortably. He could feel the eyes of their old neighborhood watching, the weight of shared history pressing down, demanding action. He hesitated, the brotherly instinct to help warring with the hurt of betrayal bubbling just beneath the surface. A few moments passed, filled only with the distant blare of the city, a reflection of Marcus's heartbeat, quickening with every tick of the clock. Eventually, the officer reluctantly pulled out his radio. "Dispatch, we need help verifying." "Marcus, are you really all right?" Jonah yelled, unable to contain his concern any longer. The tension crackled between them, so thick it felt suffocating. "I'll be fine, Jonah," Marcus reassured, though his gaze flickered back to the officers. "I have to stand my ground, and I need you here with me." Jonah moved closer, the distance between them shrinking. Although the weight of the past clung to him, he felt a flicker of rekindled loyalty, the bond they once had pushing its way through the hurt. "What were you thinking?" Jonah asked, the anger spilling through. "You could have just complied. You know how they are." "No, I'm tired of complying." Marcus shot back, the frustration boiling over. "You know that I've fought for years to earn this position. Who I am isn't defined by this badge, but it gives me a platform to change things. How can I do that if I cower away?" Jonah sighed, trying to swallow the pride that tangled within him. He couldn't help but admire Marcus's courage, even if he felt blindsided by this revelation. "You've always been about the community," he murmured, a seed of understanding starting to sprout. Across the parking lot, murmurs of support began to swell from the bystanders. A few familiar faces stepped forward, shoulders set firm with defiance against the injustice they all felt. "This is our chief," yelled a young woman, echoing the sentiment of others standing nearby. The crowd began to chant, "Justice! Respect!" The momentum shifted as more people rallied behind Marcus, his authority now realized. The arriving officers were met with a scene charged with solidarity, and the initial skepticism faded, replaced with hesitant acknowledgement that something larger was at play. Jonah's heart raced as he felt the community around him. He could see the love and respect shining through, the raw power of unity cracking through the layers of doubt between him and Marcus. Maybe we can fix this together," he said, a fragile hope threading through his uncertainty. Just then, an officer emerged from the squad car, looking both caught off guard and impressed as he held Marcus's badge aloft. The air was electric with an unspoken question: would they be able to take this momentum and turn it into understanding? "Let us see how far this goes," Marcus thought, feeling the pulse of the community rally around him, warming his heart amidst the coldness of the badge he now bore. But one question lingered. Could this night, fraught with tension, become the bridge to healing the deep rift in his own family? As Marcus stood amidst the crowd, both brother and community by his side, the stakes felt higher than ever. The clock ticked down towards something monumental that would either forge new beginnings or tear apart everything again. What awaited them in this tangled night of revelation? The horizon buzzed with unanswered fears and hopes yet to be unveiled. Marcus could feel the weight of the crowd pressing in around him, their energy a mixture of hope and trepidation. Each shout for justice ignited a warmth that wrapped around him. It was a moment he had longed for, but never fully anticipated. The solidarity echoed through the asphalt jungle as faces he recognized from years gone by stepped forward. "Stand tall, Chief," called out a voice, cutting through the tension like a blade. The young woman who had first shouted his title raised her fist, a symbol of strength, and a chorus of voices rose to join her. "Stand tall." It sounded surreal, like a chant from a different time, a different fight. In those shouts, Marcus recognized the pain and the power woven together. Each voice had a story, a struggle with wounds deeper than his own. He glanced at Jonah, who was still standing close. His brother's expression mirrored the turmoil within him, conflicted between pride and the shadows that lingered in their past. "Can we really change things?" Jonah murmured, glancing around at the crowd, at the officers, and then back to Marcus. Can this moment be something real? Even if it's just one step," Marcus said, feeling a surge of determination. "I'm not backing down. Not this time." The officer with Marcus's badge had approached the group slowly. He held it high, eyes darting between Marcus and the crowd, his uncertainty palpable. Without losing focus, Marcus knew he had to steer this conversation, a delicate dance on the edge of mistrust and revelation. "Look, everyone," the officer called, his voice echoing strong but shaky. We need to listen. It's not just about authority. It's about respect. About understanding." "Understanding?" Jonah spat, crossing his arms tightly. "You expect us to believe you'll be accountable? How many times have we heard that before?" Marcus could see the truth in Jonah's anger, the frustrations bubbling up from years spent in silence. But at the same time, he felt the shift in the crowd. They were listening, weighing his words against their own experiences. "Understanding starts now. With me," Marcus interjected, his voice breaking through the rising tension. "My badge didn't change who I am. I'm still from this community. I still care about each one of you, your lives, your struggles." The crowd quieted, some faces softened, while others remained skeptical. Pervasive distrust glinted in the eyes of a few officers, but they shifted uneasily, aware of the growing unity behind Marcus. "Let us show them what community looks like," whispered Jonah, a hint of resolve edging into his voice. It felt like a small flame flickering alive, carving a path through the darkness that had swallowed their relationship, their history. "Yeah," Marcus replied, his heart pounding with adrenaline. "If we can't trust, how can we build anything? This is a start. Let us demand change together." As soon as he finished, the chant erupted again, this time louder, cascading and building like an incoming tide. Justice, respect, unity. But just as that initial unity surged, doubt crept in again. From the crowd, a new figure stepped forward, an older woman, her face lined with determination and weariness. She pushed through, her gaze fixated on Marcus. "Chief, I want to believe you. But how can we trust words again after so many empty promises?" Her question hung heavy in the air, a reminder of the walls built through years of disappointment. In that moment, Marcus felt a surge of clarity. Trust wasn't something he could just ask for. It had to be earned, moment by moment, action by action. "Let us show you. All of you," he declared boldly, stepping forward, vulnerability and strength intertwining within him. "Let us build this together. You tell me what you need to see, and I'll work to make it happen." I won't shy away from accountability. As the crowd began to shift again, curiosity surrounding determination, Jonah stood tall beside him, nodding slowly. But within Marcus, a deeper fear took root. Would those words be enough? And as the energy of the crowd wrapped around them, he realized it was not just his future, but a community's legacy hanging in the balance. How would they measure his commitment as the first steps unfolded before them? Would this truly mark the beginning of change, or was it just another echo lost in the wind? As doubt and hope tangled together, the night remained charged with possibility, teetering on the brink of a new dawn. The roar of the crowd surged around Marcus, energy pulsing like a beating heart. He could feel every gaze, every breath, and every whisper rooted in the unique blend of hope and skepticism. The night had morphed into something bigger than anyone anticipated, and he stood at its core, ready to confront the balance of power. "Show us," shouted a voice from the crowd, a man with a wide stance but weary eyes. "Show us you mean it." Feeling the urgency in the air, Marcus took a deep breath. He raised his hand, asking for quiet while gathering his thoughts. "I hear you," he said, the words spilling out with raw passion. "I hear you. But to show you, I need to start by addressing the very foundation of what brought us here." Before he could organize his thoughts, an officer stepped forward, tension radiating from him. "Chief, you can't just—" Marcus felt his pulse quicken. "I know what I'm doing," he interrupted, but his voice lacked the confidence he wanted to project. Deep down, he feared those words might not be enough to reclaim faith from those who had suffered so long. "Let him speak," a woman yelled, cutting through the officer's objections. "Let him show us." That one rallying call cleared the air, and Marcus steadied himself. He took a step closer to the crowd, making sure he locked eyes with the older woman who questioned his sincerity. "I know I'm wearing this badge, but I'm also a son of this community. I've watched it breathe, I've felt its pain. Just because I wear this uniform doesn't mean I don't understand. Every morning, I see both sides the badge and the community, and I shoulder that responsibility. The murmurs in the crowd shifted, doubt mixed with curiosity, and Marcus could sense it. They were beginning to lean in, just slightly. I've been in this fight before, he continued, bolstered by their attention. I watched my dad navigate the same obstacles, face the same fears. And something I learned growing up is that promises don't mean anything without action. I want you to tell me exactly how we can earn back your trust. Jonah gripped Marcus's shoulder, an encouraging gesture that fueled him. But a voice shouted from the back, fierce and unyielding, "What makes you different, Chief?" Remedy after remedy, how can we trust a man with a badge when the system has kept us chained? Marcus felt a lump in his throat. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about generations of hurt. "You're right," he said, his voice echoing with sincerity. "I'm not asking for automatic forgiveness. I'm asking for a chance to show you that with action, we can change this. Each of you has a part in this. Speak out. Write to us. Help us create the change you want to see. Together, we have the power to make a difference in our community." The energy shifted again, doubt mingling with the raw possibility of transformation. They were beginning to believe that change could be real, but Marcus knew it wasn't enough yet. Then something unexpected happened. An officer, visibly moved, stepped forward and took off his helmet, revealing a young face filled with concern. "We want to help," he said, choking back emotion. "We just don't know how." The crowd gasped, and Marcus could hardly breathe. This was the moment he'd been waiting for, an officer willing to break ranks, to acknowledge the plight of the community he served. "Then stand with us," Marcus urged, his heart racing. He extended his hand to the officer, and to the crowd. He said, "We must merge our fears and hopes. This is not just my call. It's time for all of us, community and police, to reshape our narrative." As hands began to join, voices lifted in hesitant agreement. Marcus felt hope igniting. But doubt still flickered at the edges of that flame. Would this be sustainable? Would those who feared the badge ever accept them? The night buzzed with potential, yet a shadow loomed over that promised eye in the distance. Sirens howled like wolves at the moon, reminding Marcus that the battle was far from over. With the eyes of the crowd upon him, the question tumbled from his lips, lingering like a tension that would not ease. Will we do this together? Or will fear keep us divided? The crowd's tension hung in the air, palpable and thick like a summer haze. For a moment, silence stretched, and Marcus could almost feel every heartbeat in the gathering. The weight of their gaze caused his shoulders to tighten. He knew he was standing on the edge of something monumental, yet uncertainty gnawed at him like a persistent echo. Then, slowly, a hand rose from the back, a young man, barely in his 20s, with disbelief etched across his face. "Why should we believe your words?" he called out, frustration simmering beneath his voice. "You say you understand our pain, but you're still one of them. What makes you different?" Marcus swallowed hard. That question was a dagger to his heart, more striking than any criticism he'd faced before. He looked toward Jonah, his unwavering ally, who nodded as if to encourage him to dig deeper. "I get it," Marcus replied, drawing in a shaky breath. "But I want to offer more than just words. I want us to work through this. I want to listen." And just like that, voices erupted once again, overlapping in a passion-fueled swell. Some demanded action, others insisted on accountability, a mix that highlighted the fractured state of trust littering the air. It was chaos, yet amidst the clamor, Marcus could sense a rhythm growing, a heartbeat that chanted for change. "Listen," Marcus shouted, and the crowd quieted, his urgency piercing through the noise. "What if we held an open forum? A chance for everyone to share their stories, their grievances? A real dialogue on what needs to change?" The murmurs shifted, some nodding in agreement, others still weary. "Talk is cheap, Chief," a voice shouted back, sharper than before. "You think we Haven T had enough of meetings that go nowhere? Action first." He could feel the stares intensifying, a storm brewing over his head. He had to make them believe in this possibility. He stepped forward, using every ounce of sincerity he possessed. "Then let us turn those words into action together. I'll make you this promise. I will be out there, walking with you in the neighborhoods, listening. I will fight for the changes we talk about tonight." A ripple of discussion flowed through the crowd. Some began to demonstrate hesitant excitement. If the chief was willing to commit to action, maybe, just maybe, this was a moment they could all mark together. Marcus's heart raced, hope sparking as he caught sight of a few people exchanging glances. Maybe they were daring to let a little trust slip in. But just as the energy shifted towards something lighter, a distant siren pierced the night again, cutting through this fragile web of hope. In the middle of the crowd, tension erupted. "What if one of us is shot tonight?" A woman shouted. "What if we're thrown in jail for just being here?" Marcus's stomach twisted. He felt a sour taste in his mouth as if fear was rising in his throat. "That's a risk we face every day," he admitted, locking his eyes with hers. "But being scared can't win. Together, we can protect each other." Just for an instant, the flicker of resolute defiance danced in the air. But could he control the fire? Would it burn bright or consume them all? As whispers turned to shouts, Marcus took a step back, letting the weight of the moment sink in. One thing was clear. They would have to fight both for each other and against the very fear that kept them apart. In that moment of uncertainty, a hand reached out. It was Jonah, pulling Marcus into a tighter circle and whispering, "You can do this." He wondered if he really could. The stakes felt higher than ever as the crowd's energy surged once again, and he realized he was being called to embody the change he spoke of. Will this movement be a fleeting moment, or will it turn into something lasting? He thought, the question lingering in his mind as the sirens faded. What existed in the balance, real hope, or yet another shattered promise, remained to be seen. And suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the street. Panic surging through the gathering, Marcus froze. It was time for decisions and actions that mattered. What awaited him on the other side of that noise? The crash echoed again, more intense this time, reverberating through the crowd like a gong striking a nerve. Marcus's heart pounded in his chest as the collective gasp rippled through the assembly. He could feel the air thickening with apprehension, and his instincts kicked in. In that moment, he could either lead or let the wave of panic sweep over them. "Stay calm," he shouted, his voice cutting through the haze of fear. "We need to know what is happening out there. Stay together." He scanned the crowd, looking for Jonah. Their eyes locked, and Marcus nodded, silently urging his friend to help him maintain order. Jonah moved through the throng, positioning himself near Marcus at the front, his presence a steadying force. As Marcus stepped closer to the edge of the crowd, he felt the heat against his skin. Voices whispered anxiously, each one a thread in an intricate tapestry of tension. Just then, a figure stumbled around the corner, clearly distressed. It was Mike, a young man known for his commitment to social justice in the community. "Marcus," Mike shouted, sweat glistening on his brow. "They're moving in. The police are trying to break us up." A collective shudder passed through the crowd. Tension spiked as fear transformed into something raw, something primal. Marcus could feel it in his bones. This was where everything could fracture. He had to act. "Listen," Marcus called out again. "We need to stay united. If they come for us, we stand together. We've got to protect one another." But the crowd was becoming restless. Angry voices bubbled up, demanding to know what to do next. Marcus could sense the growing chaos, the fear of what was to come: arrests, violence, chaos. "What if we leave?" a woman said, her voice shaking. "What if walking away is the safer option? Running never solved anything." A man countered, and the two began to argue. The emotion tangled up in the crowd intensified. One side was calling for retreat, the other for action. "Don't let them divide us," Marcus yelled, raising his hands to command attention. "This moment is ours to seize. We either stand as one, or we face this alone, and I know none of us wants that. We have a chance to speak for what we believe in and claim our right to be heard." He could hear the beat of his own heart louder than the disturbance outside. It was now or never. What did he believe in? Risking everything for this? It was terrifying. But he felt warmth gradually emanating from the gazes locking back at him, hesitance giving way to resolution. Just as his confidence began to swell, a sound of heavy boots thundered closer. Flashing lights flickered in the distance. A figure emerged, dressed in riot gear. It was a police officer, moving purposefully toward the crowd. Marcus's stomach dropped. He knew the eyes of a frightened crowd were on him, and every heartbeat seemed to echo the weight of his next decisions. Would the promise of dialogue evaporate? Could he rally them to hold their ground? "Whatever happens, remember this," he shouted, panic threatening to bubble over. "We are not just statistics. We are voices. We are people." A new energy began to flow, emboldened by something raw and unyielding. But a single voice broke through, louder than before, recklessly demanding action. What is Chief Marcus gonna do about it? We need protection. Suddenly, Marcus froze. Could he still be the leader they needed? The sirens were back, looming ever closer, and he realized that the real test was not just standing against the forces outside they were fighting to keep their own courage alive. But what would he reveal about himself, about his own identity, to keep the peace? And what price would he pay? The tension in the air thickened as dark clouds swirled overhead. Would this stand leave them forever changed, or would it pull apart the very foundation of trust he had tried to build? The night was just beginning, and decisions loomed closer than shadows. What awaited him when he confronted the thin blue line? The officer stepped closer, the weight of his presence bearing down on the crowd. Marcus stood at the front, heart racing, as he felt the energy shift from defiance to unease. The questions in the air grew thick. Would they stand strong, or dissolve into fear? Who is in charge here? The officer barked, his voice sharp enough to fray nerves. His helmet glinted under the streetlights as he scanned the crowd, his eyes landing on Marcus. I need to speak to the leader. The crowd stilled, a silence stretching painfully as all eyes moved to Marcus. He could feel the collective breath being held. Fragments of conversations floated away, replaced by a heavy tension that lodged in his throat. It's me, Marcus replied, trying to swallow the tremor in his voice. What do you want? Step forward, the officer commanded, the arm in riot gear gesturing him to approach. Self-doubt clawed at Marcus, but he pushed it down. He couldn't show weakness, now not in front of his community. Taking a deep breath, he moved closer, Jonah right beside him. Just so you know, Marcus said, his voice steadier than he felt. We're here peacefully. We want to express our rights without confrontation. The officer's eyes narrowed. Peaceful? You call this peaceful? He gestured towards the crowd, which had shifted back in fear of the advancing law enforcement. You are blocking the street. People deserve to be heard. Marcus countered, the passion flaring within. We're calling for justice. We have a right to protest. And we have a right to enforce the law, the officer replied, his tone shifting from authority to menace. Leave now or face the consequences. The murmurs rumbled through the crowd, and Marcus felt the weight of despair looming. How many times had they faced this? How many times had they fought for their voices to be heard? The blood of his ancestors coursed through him, igniting a fire he could hardly contain. Listen, he shouted, spinning to face the crowd. Remember why we're here. We're not breaking the law. We're standing for our dignity. If we leave now, what message does that send? But somewhere in the back, a voice cried out, this isn't worth it. Marcus turned to see faces filled with uncertainty. He could feel the tide of panic returning, threatening to swallow their resolve. We can't lose hope. We can't let their fear take away our strength. There's power in our unity. The officer took a step closer, and Marcus saw the uncertainty in his eyes, too. This was a moment. A chance to peel back the layers of animosity. Do you know what it feels like? Marcus asked, his voice quieter but charged with intensity. To feel scared just because of the color of your skin? I'm not your enemy. My people are not your enemy. We all want justice. We all want peace. Let me show you. The officer halted, the mask of authority faltering for just a moment. For a heartbeat, it felt like the crowd held its breath, waiting for a break in the tension, a bridge behind the barriers erected between them. Suddenly, another shout erupted from the back of the crowd. They'll never listen. They don't care about us. Marcus clenched his fists. Did he dare to push further? Could revelation change their approach? If you think they don't care now, he glanced at the officer, then back at the crowd. Maybe it's time we reveal who I am. Gasps rippled through the audience, incredulity painting their faces. He could feel the weight of their expectations intensifying. Would this connection be enough to shift the narrative? As the crowd leaned in, the officer hesitated, eyes widening slightly as realization sparked across his face. Just who do you think you are? He demanded, a mixture of surprise and skepticism in his voice. That's what I'm about to show you. The charged air crackled as he prepared to expose deeper truths, both his own and the systems around them. But would it bring them closer or create an even wider rift? The road ahead twisted like a labyrinth, filled with revelations and lurking shadows. And they were just beginning to step inside. Marcus took a breath, feeling every eye in the crowd glued to him, each heartbeat echoing like a drum in his chest. This was no ordinary moment. It felt like a pivotal point, like the ground beneath his feet had shifted. "Do you really want to know who I am?" he asked, locking eyes with the officer, who looked on with a mix of confusion and wariness. There was a moment of stillness, where it seemed the world had stopped to listen. The tension in the air buzzed, thick and charged. "I'm Marcus Johnson," he said, voice steady now, the grandson of a man who marched for rights when those fights were met with bricks and batons. "I'm not just a face in the crowd. I'm a symbol of our heritage. I carry the weight of our ancestors' struggles, the dreams they had for freedom. I'm part of a family resurrection." Gasps rippled again, but this time there was something different in it: recognition, maybe even reverence. People shifted, heads nodding slowly as his words sunk in deeper. "Like many of you here, I've faced the pain of oppression. I've felt the stares, the anger, the fear, yet I stand here, not with hostility, but with hope. We need change, but we can't do it alone." He glanced back at the officer, whose gaze softened just slightly, walls beginning to falter. "I know you're trained to keep the peace, but the peace we seek goes beyond these streets. It lives in the hearts of people who want equity." As he spoke, there was movement in the crowd, a collective shift as they began to see Marcus not just as a protester, but as a beacon of their shared struggle. "This is about more than just tonight," he continued, raising his voice. "It's about tomorrow and the legacy we leave. Do you want to be a part of the solution, or do you want to stand by while we're all crumbling? This isn't just about you. It's about all of us," someone shouted from the back, a voice charged with renewed vigor. Others began to chime in, echoing the sentiment, rekindling the fire of courage that flickered in their hearts. The officer's posture seemed to shift, tension in his shoulders easing as he processed Marcus's words. For a moment, the lines that divided them blurred, personal histories spilling into a collective aspiration for change. "You don't think we care about the community?" the officer finally asked, his voice softer as if he were searching for understanding. "Caring is just the beginning," Marcus replied, clutching onto the newfound hope swelling within him. "We need action, change that lasts. We need you to stand with us. Together, we can break the cycle." More people began to join in, voices rising, creating a chorus of shared purpose. "We're ready to listen. We're ready to support." The crowd was reinvigorated, the flicker of doubt replaced by determination. But just as optimism started to spread, a sudden crack of noise shattered the moment. More officers began to gather behind the first, forming a wall of uniformed authority, an ominous reminder of the struggle ahead. The energy shifted again as fear crept back in. "Stay strong," Marcus shouted, raising his hands, trying to rally the crowd once more, but uncertainty was already taking root. Would the moment of connection be enough to stop the tide from crashing back down? Just as the officer opened his mouth, questions swirling in his mind, Marcus's heart sank. Was the thin thread of understanding they'd created strong enough to withstand the impending chaos? He felt a fleeting flicker of doubt. "Together," he urged, "we can make history, but we have to stand firm now more than ever." And as he looked to the officer, he knew they were standing on the edge of a precipice, one strong gust away from falling back into chaos or stepping forward into something new and hopeful. But which way would it go? The air grew thicker as the crowd tensed, sensing the looming presence of more officers filling in behind the first. The earlier unity began to splinter under a wave of anxiety. Faces that had turned from despair to hope were now clouded by uncertainty. "Marcus, we can't let this moment slip." A voice rang through the crowd, urging others to rally. It was Melissa, a friend from the neighborhood, her voice a steady current against the rising tide of fear. "Remember what we fought for. We can't let them intimidate us." Her words sparked a flicker of courage in the crowd, but a shadow passed over Marcus's heart. He looked at the officers, understanding their job to uphold order, but also seeing the fear in their eyes. They were people too, caught in a system that bred division. The officer closest to him stood rigid, his face a mix of authority and alarm. "Stay back," another officer shouted, stepping forward, his hands raised, an unmistakable threat woven into the warning. The tension pulled like a taut wire, ready to snap, and Marcus could feel the sweat trickling down his back. "Don't be frightened," Marcus called out, his voice rising above the chaos, even as his heart threatened to abandon its steady pace. We're not here to cause trouble. We just want a chance to be heard, to unite for our future. And then it happened. A roar of acknowledgement flooded back from the crowd, people shouting their support, voices overlapping and intertwining with urgency. We are here. We stand together. The power of their collective voice surged through the air, a tangible force. Among the crowd, he noticed familiar faces, friends and elders, their expressions etched with determination. And amidst them, the younger generation, eyes bright and hopeful, believing they could usher in a new era. Listen to us. We want justice, not violence. We want partnership, not division. Melissa implored, stepping forward as if to bridge the gap between the groups. Marcus felt a jolt of inspiration. This was more than just a protest. It was a call to action, a moment when history could pivot. He turned back toward the officer. You have the choice to stand with us. Show them that we can change this together. The officer's face shifted, uncertainty flickering in his gaze as he glanced at his fellow officers. It wasn't he just standing orders anymore. It was about humanity, about action and reaction. Suddenly, one of the other officers began to step back, almost instinctively clasping his radio. We need backup, he called out nervously, his voice almost fading into the clamor of the crowd. Don't let fear dictate your actions, Marcus shouted, throwing his arms wide, his heartbeat matching the rhythm of the chaos. Don't let the loudest voices drown out the truth. We can rewrite tomorrow together. But then, chaos erupted as a group of protesters near the perimeter tripped over one another, yelling, pushing. The officers instinctively raised their shields, the atmosphere curdling as bodies lurched against one another. Stay calm. Stay united. Marcus called again, his voice strained now but unwavering. He reached for Melissa's hand, the audience locking eyes with him in a moment of collective breath. But sighs of fear transformed into gasps of disbelief as the officer stepped forward again, his face pale, yet resolute. Then what are you willing to sacrifice for this change? That question hung in the air like a spark. Would they be willing to push through the pain? Would they fight for what they believed in? He felt the weight of the moment. They were on a precipice. Their next step could either blacken or illuminate their legacy. Would they crumble or rise? With a newfound sense of determination, Marcus stood tall. We will not be silenced. We will stand as one, united in our struggle. But even as he spoke, he wondered, could that unity withstand the storm waiting to break? As the tension built, every heartbeat was a question hanging there, begging for an answer. What would come next? The night huddled around them, heavy with expectation as the officer's words lingered like a silent thunderclap in the air. Each person in the crowd stood on a knife's edge of anticipation, ready to either plunge into chaos or take a leap towards something beautiful. Marcus could feel the moment's weight pulling at him, and in that moment, he stepped forward, every muscle in his body vibrating with urgency. What am I willing to sacrifice? He echoed, the question resonating in his heart. I am willing to risk it all for my community, for my family, and for the truth that we need to protect one another. Across the crowd, he met Jonah's gaze, where uncertainty had begun to melt into hope. Seeing the shift in his brother filled Marcus with a strength he and T realized he needed. You all matter. This community matters, he shouted, his voice piercing through the tension. He sensed a small ripple ignite as people clenched their fists, ready to stand with him. Tell them, Chief. Melissa's voice rang out, shaking their community awake. In that instant, something electrifying surged through the air, a renewed bond, primed to challenge the darkness that loomed ahead. Marcus raised his head, his heart pounding. Together, we are stronger than fear, he cried, his words reverberating around him. The energy around the crowd surged again, igniting an anthem of resilience. There's a power that lies in our truths. We've fought too long to be silenced. He felt Jonah step beside him, the connection between them strengthening, reinforcing the bridge between their fractured past. The officers behind him stood, hesitating, eyes darting among themselves. Marcus saw the flicker of doubt in their expressions. Could they truly understand? Steeling himself, he looked directly at the officer who had questioned him. What are you willing to do to reclaim trust between us? To protect the people you serve? Each word drew the crowd closer, the tension trembling with compelling energy. The officer hesitated, then slowly, his shoulders sagged as he shifted, looking at his colleagues with a dagger of understanding in his eyes. "You're not just a chief," he murmured, realization dawning. "You're one of them." "Yes," Marcus shouted, leaping at the opportunity. "This isn't just about titles. It's about community. It's about hope and unity, and, most importantly, it's about action." He could feel every heart around him sink into a singularity pulsing toward change. Then, as if the walls of division began to crumble, the officer looked to his fellow officers, stepping back toward Marcus and the crowd. "All right, let us do this together," he said, his voice quieter but sincere, the first hints of humanity breaking through the layers of uniform. A collective gasp rolled through the protesters. Could this be real? Hope surged like a rising tide. "Really?" Someone in the crowd called, uncertainty lacing their words. "Let us open dialogue," the officer pressed, now facing his own men. "Let us hear what they have to say." There was a quiet tension lingering, like a balloon just waiting for the right breath to burst forth. "Do you hear that?" Jonah whispered to Marcus, catching the nuances in their voices. "They're ready for this. Then let us make them listen." Marcus shouted, adrenaline buzzing through him. "We are here. We matter. Let's stand as one." In that moment, Marcus thrust a hand toward the crowd, inviting them to step forward in unity. One by one, people took a step, drawing closer to the lines of authority, hearts igniting with courage. He could feel Melissa, Jonah, and others by his side, and as they moved, hope gradually became a solid wall of humanity. The officer joined Marcus at the front, reaching out as more officers began to mirror his movements. The tension wound tighter around them until, with mutual resolve, they stood shoulder to shoulder against the fear that threatened to divide them. Then, the chant erupted again, louder, more pronounced than before. Justice, respect, unity. It became an anthem of change, merging the voices of community and police alike, resonating in the night air like a sweet promise. As the world held its breath, Marcus locked eyes with Jonah. The years of hurt seemed like a distant echo, replaced with something stronger, an enduring bond forged in the fire of struggle and resilience. "We can do this," Jonah said quietly, glowing with belief and affection. The light of dawn began creeping over the horizon, warming the cold night air, casting a golden hue over the crowd as they stood united. It was a new beginning, the turning of a page that they could write together. "Yes, we can," Marcus shouted back, his voice carrying with the wind, mingling with the robustness of hope that surged through each heart present. As the chants of the crowd interwove with the brightening sky, Marcus knew this was just the beginning of a movement that could change everything. In that unified moment, walls crumbled not just between community members and police, but within his own family as well. The night had shifted from chaos to clarity. Here, amidst the hum of possibility, Marcus paved the way for not just a conversation, but a connection that could last a lifetime. They were beginning to heal, beginning to transform. He could finally see it. True change was not just a dream. It was tangible. It was right here. This was only the start. And now, dear friends, this is your moment to stand with us. You need to subscribe now to not miss powerful stories like this. Leave a like now and let us feed that algorithm. Comment below with your feelings about this ending and how this transformation inspired you. Don't wait, not even one more second. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this change. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting our channel through these actions.